Let's start with a choice you make every single day. On your kitchen counter sit 3 items: a clear plastic bottle, a greasy pizza box, and a banana peel. By tomorrow morning, each one will be on a completely different journey. That plastic bottle, it's made of PET, polyethylene terephthalate, the gold standard of recyclable plastics. But here's the billion-dollar question: who really decided where each of these items ends up tonight? The sorter on the line, a contract written 10 years ago, or a global rule passed halfway across the world? The answer is all 3. And their decisions are costing you money. First, let's follow the money, because that's what this system runs on. For every ton of waste your city collects, there's a gate fee. A price of admission. Door number 1, the landfill. The cheapest ticket in town, usually running $40 to $90 per ton. Quick, easy, and out of sight. But it comes with a long-term price we'll talk about later. Door number 2, the recycling plant, or as the insiders call it, a MRF, a materials recovery facility. Getting in here costs more upfront, about $70 to $100 per ton, especially when the market for recycled goods is weak. Door number 3, the waste-to-energy plant. This is the premium option, $80 to $120 a ton. They burn your trash to create electricity, but it's expensive. That's a massive $40 to $100 price swing per ton. If your household tosses about 1 ton a year, which is pretty average, that feels like an extra $3 to $8 on your bill every single month. For a small city, we're talking millions. But it's not just about the money. It's also about the clock. Time is a brutal factor here. If a truck full of recycling gets rejected for being too contaminated, say, with too many of those greasy pizza boxes, it now has to make a second trip. Straight to the landfill. The driver is now in overtime. And because of that delay, a whole neighborhood might miss their pickup for the day. Now follow the climate. This is where it gets serious. Those food scraps, that banana peel, buried today in a landfill will start pumping out methane, a greenhouse gas over 80 times more potent than CO2, within weeks. These landfills have systems to capture that gas, but they only grab maybe 50 to 70% over the landfill's entire life, and way less at the beginning. It's a leaky system. Incineration, on the other hand, shrinks that trash volume by 90%. 1 ton becomes a small pile of ash. And it generates power, about 500 kilowatt-hours per ton. Enough to run your fridge for a year. But it's not a magic bullet. You're still left with toxic ash that has to be carefully buried. And then there's recycling. That clean PET bottle? Making a new one from that old one saves over 60% of the energy. An aluminum can? A staggering 95% energy savings. That is why purity, keeping your recycling clean, is the name of the entire game. So let's zoom out and look at the system map. It starts with you. At home. You put stuff in the bin. The haulers collect it. It goes to a transfer station to be weighed, because every pound has a price. From there, it's a fork in the road. Recyclables go to the MRF for sorting. Trash either goes to be buried in a landfill or burned for energy. Recycled materials are crushed into huge bales and sold to reprocessors, who turn them back into raw materials, plastic pellets, paper pulp, or metal ingots. Overseeing it all? Regulators setting the rules of the game. And remember this, every single gate in this entire system has 3 things: a scale, a contamination limit, and a price tag. Pass or fail. Profit or loss. Let's talk scale, because the numbers are mind-bending. The world generates 2.24 billion tons of city-level waste every year. By 2050, we're on track for 3.4 billion tons. In most cities, organics, food scraps and yard trimmings, are the heaviest part, about 20 to 35% of the total weight. Paper is next at 15 to 25%. And plastics, the thing we all talk about. just 10 to 12% by weight. And remember that contamination limit? Most recycling plants will reject an entire truckload if it's more than 15% contaminated. Guess what the average contamination rate from our homes is? 15 to 25%. We are constantly right on the edge of failure. And those plastic bags you put your recycling in? Instant failure. They jam the sorting machines, so entire bags are pulled off the line and sent straight to the landfill. No questions asked? The prices in this market are like a roller coaster. After 2018, the price for mixed paper went from positive to negative, meaning you had to pay to get rid of it. Plastic bottles? Their value is tied to the price of oil. Bales of PET can be worth anywhere from almost nothing to over $400 a ton. Imagine trying to run a business on that kind of volatility. Then in 2018, the game board was flipped upside down. China, which had been the world's biggest buyer of scrap material, put up a wall. They called it the National Sword Policy. They set a near impossible 0.5% impurity limit on scrap imports. Overnight, the biggest customer on Earth vanished. That one move created total chaos. It collapsed the global market for mixed paper and mixed plastics. So where did all that material go? Exporters scrambled, sending it to Malaysia, Vietnam, Turkey. But soon, those countries got overwhelmed and put up their own restrictions. Suddenly, a port getting clogged or container prices spiking meant bales of recycling would just sit there. And here's the scary part. Most recycling facilities only have enough floor space for 48 to 72 hours of material. When that floor fills up, they have only one option for safety: divert everything to the landfill. Why for safety? Because massive piles of paper and plastic are a huge fire risk. And what locks all of this chaos in place? The contract. Your city probably signed a multi-year deal with a waste company. Some of those deals have what's called a put or pay clause. This means the city guarantees it will deliver a minimum amount of trash to an incinerator or landfill. If they deliver less, say, because they started a great new recycling or composting program, they have to pay a penalty. Think about how insane that is. The contract makes it financially punishing to do the right thing. It creates a powerful incentive against diverting waste, even when better options exist. This is a system with 4 catastrophic failure modes. Failure 1, quality collapse. A few people on your street throw the wrong things in the bin: plastic bags, a garden hose, food-soaked paper. That pushes the whole truckload over the contamination limit. The outcome? The city pays the recycling plant to try and sort it, fails, and then pays again to bury it in the landfill. Double cost. Zero recycling. Public trust is shattered. Failure 2, market whiplash. A global event happens, bale prices collapse. The recycling plant goes from paying the city for its materials to charging them a huge fee. The city budget takes a massive, unexpected hit. And to stop the bleeding, some cities temporarily just landfill everything. Residents see recycling trucks dumping at the landfill and feel completely betrayed. Failure 3, contract lock-in. That put or pay clause we talked about. It makes diverting waste look irrational on a spreadsheet, even when it's the most rational thing to do for the environment and the long-term economy. The past is holding the future hostage. And failure 4, the silent killer, organics in the trash. That banana peel. Those leftovers. They are the primary driver of near-term methane emissions from landfills, the single fastest lever we have on global warming. But for every failure mode, there is a leverage point. The first and most powerful? Quality at the curb. If we can drop our contamination rate from over 20% to under 10%, entire loads flip from being rejected garbage to valuable commodities. MRF costs go down. Domestic factories start buying again. The system stabilizes. The second leverage point? Separate organics. A dedicated bin for food and yard waste. This can pull 20 to 30% of the material out of landfills overnight. It slashes the methane risk and turns that waste into valuable compost or biogas. Third, smarter policy. Things like bottle deposit laws, or laws requiring manufacturers to use a minimum amount of recycled content in their products. These policies create steady, reliable demand for recycled materials. They tame that price whiplash and make the entire system predictable and sane. Let's run a 72-hour stress test. A storm sits off the coast. Day 1, 8 a.m., port operations slow down. Container ships get delayed. By evening, the MRF storage floor is 60% full. Day 2, 2 p.m., the floor is now 90% full. The fire risk is getting critical. The plant manager triggers a diversion plan. Day 3, 6 a.m., 20 city trucks are rerouted from the struggling MRF directly to the landfill. Costs are spiking with overtime pay. By dinner time, 2 whole neighborhoods have had their pickups completely missed. Chaos. Now rewind. What single safeguard changes this whole scenario? 2 things: enforcing strict quality at the curb, and having a guaranteed local buyer for high-value materials like plastic bottles, cans, and cardboard. High-purity material comes in. Short travel routes out. No reliance on global shipping. Fires avoided. Trust preserved. So let's bring it back to that kitchen table. The clear PET bottle, when it's empty and clean, is a high-value commodity. Keep the cap on, that helps it get sorted correctly. The pizza box? This is where people get confused. If the bottom is soaked in grease, that part is trash. Tear off the clean top half, that can be recycled. The banana peel? That's the methane trigger. In a compost bin, it becomes rich soil. In a landfill, it becomes a climate problem. The golden rule is to recycle by specification, not by wish. We call it wish cycling when you toss something in hoping it's recyclable. Don't do it. No plastic bags. No tanglers like cords or hoses. No food-soaked paper. A quick rinse is all you need. And the most important advice? If in doubt, leave it out. Better to send one questionable item to the landfill than to contaminate an entire truckload. And think upstream. Choose aluminum cans and clear plastic bottles over those weird multi-layer pouches. Buy products made with recycled content to support the market. And the biggest lever of all? Just prevent food waste in the first place. Plan your meals. Use your leftovers. Every pound of food you don't throw away is money saved and methane avoided. That beats any recycling system, any day of the week. This isn't just on us. Institutions have to make the big moves. They need to write smarter contracts, ones with off-ramps that don't punish them for doing the right thing. They need to prioritize quality, maybe even scanning bins at the curb and educating repeat offenders. They need to add that third bin for organics and charge people based on how much trash they generate, pay as you throw. Smaller trash can, smaller bill. Simple. They need to build regional partnerships with factories to create stable, local demand. Upgrade the MRFs with AI and optical sorters to improve purity. And most of all, they need to be transparent. Publish a public dashboard showing contamination rates, costs, and where the material actually ends up. When people see the stakes, they change their behavior. If you were running this system, here are the metrics you'd watch like a hawk. Curbside contamination rate, route by route. The MRF's residue rate, how much stuff they have to landfill. The landfill's methane capture efficiency. And maybe most importantly, what percentage of your materials are sold to a domestic buyer. That's your resilience score. So here's the final verdict, ledger style. The vulnerabilities are clear. Contamination is the poison pill. Market whiplash is the constant threat. Bad contracts lock us into the past. And organics in the landfill are a ticking climate clock. But the strengths are just as clear. Quality control at the curb is the silver bullet. Separating organics is the biggest climate win. Smart policies create stability. And local markets create resilience. This is a solvable problem. And here's your takeaway. A testable action. For 1 week, do a purity audit in your own home. Put a paper bag next to your bin. Every single time you hesitate, or you're not 100% sure if an item is recyclable, toss it in that doubt bag. At the end of the week, look up your local rules and see how many of those items would have contaminated your entire bin. Your mission? Cut that number in half next week. Now that you know the hidden journey your waste takes, you'll never look at your trash can the same way again. And knowing how these systems really work is the first step to making them better. If you found this audit of the systems we all depend on fascinating, you're going to want to see our investigation into the system that powers your world. Click the video on your screen to find out what really happens when the grid goes down. And my question for you is this: what is the one item you always hesitate to put in the recycling bin? That one thing you're never sure about. Drop it in the comments. Let's see what the most confusing item is for everyone. Finally, we expose the hidden logic and failure points of a new system like this every single day. To see the world with a new set of eyes, make sure you hit subscribe and turn on notifications.